There we are live, I think. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Alex. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, we're live. I think I'll just keep adding people as they keep coming in. So, yeah. Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? Hmm.
Is there some connection issue from Jennifer's side?
No, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I was sharing a slide for a second, making sure that works. Did that come through before?
Okay.
I didn't see a slide.
You didn't? Okay, I'm going to do it again just to see if it takes a second. Hold on. I was just going under present, share screen, and
We have guests here, so I think we can start with the workshop.
okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Hello everybody. I'm sorry, I just have a little bit connection issue, so I can't turn my video on, as I won't be audible to you guys then. Hello everybody. I am Mazia Mehtab. I work at FCI. I'm the marketing manager. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about Founders Club, what we do, FCI in general. So Founders Club is a platform where we bring together entrepreneurs from all over the world to come together. We conduct workshops and networking events where entrepreneurs share their journeys, share any advices that they have, anything for the community that may help us all, the entrepreneur community for their startups, for their businesses. So yeah, we hold weekly workshops, and this workshop is being conducted with Jennipher Judge, who is she's based in Austin, Texas. She works at Coldwell Banker. She's a realtor. She's a real estate agent, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but we went live yesterday on Instagram. We had our live podcast on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere, and I've received a very good response. So yeah, Jennifer, you want to introduce yourself? You want to tell us about what you do? Everything, just introduce it. Also, guys, I want to introduce you all to Alex as well. Alex is here because of Jennifer. Um, so, Alex, please introduce yourself. Also, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna help us in this workshop, your contribution to the workshop, what it's gonna be. So, let's just start with Jennifer, and then we
Great,
can move to Alex.
great. And Mazi, you want to mute yourself? We'll see if that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, first of all, good evening for you. Good morning for us. Huge thanks to, I'm just going to start with Alex. So Alex, can you kind of raise your hand in case people can't see you, make some crazy. Yeah, there he is. Okay,
Hi.
folks. Yes, this is Alex Daniel, and he is with Cornerstone First Mortgage. He is up very early this morning out in California, but he also is works in Austin and lives in Austin. And we're going to be speaking with him a little later in the presentation, but his specialty is financing and finding mortgages, matching people, understanding who they are, and making sure that if you want to buy something, he's going to be the expert in that area. He's also a partner of mine. We work at totally separate organizations. But when you're buying a home in the US, most people are using some form of financing. And when you are from abroad, that could be, there's different, it's just a different process. So Alex is excellent in this area. And I wanted to bring him to the table because I thought at some point there's going to be questions. So my name's Jennipher Judge. I am a realtor. I used to work in the tech community and the startup in both Seattle and in Austin. I also worked in the video games industry. I worked in human resources and people. I am an investor myself in residential property around the U.S., and I think it's an excellent way to, most importantly, put a roof over your head, to build wealth, and 3, generate income. And we'll discuss a little bit of that today. And right now, I'm not able to share my screen. So if you have shown up in the last 2 days, thank you. Today will be a little bit more formalized, so it is a workshop. And I just wanted to let you know. So what we're going to cover is, obviously, we're going to introduce one another. And I do have some questions about everybody watching. I'm going to tell you about how real estate agents help and what their background is, because a lot of times people will say, well, why do I have to use a real estate agent? I know plenty about real estate, and I'm going to share why. I'm going to talk about who is buying in the U.S. right now, especially focusing on foreign investments. We're going to talk about something super important a lot of home buyers, no matter where you're from, don't think about. They don't think about the correlation of what's going on in the world, the economy, global, U.S., and hyperlocal, in our case, to Texas, and even down to the Austin, Texas level. We're going to think about, after you've got the economy bit, things you need to think about if you're a home buyer here, even if you have a home somewhere else in the world. And then also, if you've never bought, sometimes it sounds very sexy to be able to buy a house, but you don't think about the responsibility and other expenses involved. So we want to make sure you're going in eyes wide open. We'll talk about what the process looks like, kind of high level, but I think it's helpful to have a graphic, which hopefully I can share. We're going to figure that out, but I'll certainly walk you through it. Then how to finance the home. That's where Alex is definitely going to come in. And then where to invest. We're not going to tell you where to invest, but we're going to discuss. And then most importantly, at the end, we're going to field some questions. And if something comes up before we get to the end and you're just dying to know it, please put it in the chat box. We absolutely want to address questions. We just want to make sure you all get as much information that's important to you through this process. So I am going to ask a question. I'm going to pick on somebody. I see the name Muhammad Rasa. And if you don't want to put your face on the screen, that's fine. But I have to tell you, it's very personal when we get an opportunity to see who we're talking to. But Muhammad, if you would, could you just type in the chat box? And is that possible, Mesa? Is it possible for our audience to type in the chat box, or is that only going to be for the speakers? Alex, do you want to type something? Tess, there we go. Love Alex. Okay. All right. Well, we're just going to start. But if you do have questions, it looks like the chat box works, and I encourage you to join in and ask questions, because that really is our end product. Is how are we going to educate and make sure you understand what's going on over here? Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, Alex, why don't you jump in, even though you're going to be talking more at the end, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey over here, and how you help folks.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's early out here in California, and I'm taking this call from my car because my wife is pregnant and I had to leave the house so she could keep sleeping. So thanks for my environment and bearing with it. But I've been in lending and banking for 15 plus years. Like Jennipher too, we've been buying and selling our property, not only in California, but in other parts of the U.S. and Austin. And so we have a lot of knowledge in the investor part of things, but I have a lot of knowledge in the financing part of things too. So I think my benefit here is just going to be to relay the knowledge of how we can help you guys get financed if you're not thinking about buying all in cash, or maybe the concept of leveraging, and instead of buying one property or two properties all in cash, maybe you can buy like 3 or 4 or 5 properties and kind of have a bigger portfolio.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. And we will at the end, we'll make sure you have some contact information. And, hopefully today is not the end, but only the beginning of all this learning. So, Mazia, are you there still? Because I do have a couple. There you are. Awesome. Can individuals type in? If I ask questions, I can see a result. Hi there.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you all. It's just that I'm facing a little bit connection issue from my side.
Okay.
So Jennipher, I hope you have the workshop planned. We have all our guests here, so I think you can just start with the workshop.
Can I ask you a quick
Whatever
question?
you have for us to present,
Yes, thank you.
We're all here.
Okay, wonderful.
And Amreen is here as well, so if you need anything, Amreen can also answer if I'm not here. Okay?
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And and I apologize if I'm not saying the name right, but Zainab, you're a rock star. I'm gonna give you a house. Okay, so let's start. So first of all, like I mentioned, I want to talk about. Nasa, you can now mute yourself. Thank you. All right. Okay. So a lot of people wanted to know in the last few days, who is buying here in the U.S. besides U.S. citizens? And we have seen the population of Texas change substantially in the last couple of years. I hate to say thanks to COVID, but people have been moving all over the place. So right now, the population, we have 3% of buyers in 2022 considered foreign buyers, which is really exciting. It's really mixing up Texas, adding diversity, and a lot of that has to do with the tech community. It just does. Let's see, I put some new stats because obviously we're at the change of the new year and we're getting new stuff all the time. 21% I'm finding in the Austin area are folks of India descent, and 10% Mexico, 6% Chinese, 4% Canadian. And those rack up with who these buyers are. I mean, there's people buying from all over the world, but Mexico, China, and Canada really are the top 3 countries that we're seeing taking the lead in investing in the area. And that is real estate, commercial, land. And so that's exciting. Let me see what else. The next question I just wanted to talk to also was, as realtors are working with you, who the heck is helping you, right? Every state in the U.S. has different requirements to become a realtor. And Texas is deemed as one of the most difficult to become a realtor. I used to be a real estate agent in the state of Washington, where Seattle is. And it's 60 hours of training. And it's intense training, but it's 60 hours. It doesn't take very long. You can do it in a couple weeks. Hopefully your background aligns with what we're doing. Some people come from a place of service. Some people come from, really all backgrounds. There's no, you have to have this or you have to have that. And once you finish your training, you take a state exam. In Texas, instead of 60 hours, you have to take 180 hours. And then you take a state exam. And then you find an organization where you can practice real estate. So I have been practicing real estate in Texas I'm in my 3rd year here. I've done over 25 transactions and just absolutely appreciate working for folks around the world. I would say over 50% of my clients have been international. I'm not sure how that's happened, but my focus has always been to work with the tech companies or tech folks from the tech industry, because that has been my background. My background, again, human resources, negotiations are very important, being precise. But then the other side of it is working with people and listening to people and understanding what's important to them. So that's a little bit about how I've become a real estate agent, and I absolutely adore it. Now we're going to jump, and I'm going to try one more time to see if I can get a screen, because I'm not sure why I'm having trouble today Let me just pull this over here. Apologize, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay. I'm going to present. Share screen. Okay. And we're going to try to share about the economy. I'm in the show. Can someone give me, Alex, you want to give me a thumbs up if you can see that now? Just thumbs up?
I don't see anything.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. All right, folks. Well, guess what? I'm going to be chatting with you then. Okay. So the U.S. economy. I don't know exactly how Pakistan was hit with COVID, but the U.S. really felt it. It was a very eye-opening to all of a sudden just be in your home. But what ended up happening was people kept on moving forward. And that was fascinating. And many jobs went away, more of the service industry, in Austin, musicians, but across, going to a restaurant, there weren't very many restaurants, everybody pared down. Texas, however, has sprung back as one of the top two states in the U.S. that bounced back from the recovery from COVID, which has been really exciting. And people really grasped onto Texas during COVID as people picked up and moved. We all know that I'm going to assume, we knew that the economy, as far as real estate, took a giant dip right when COVID started at the very beginning of 2020. But quickly people were able to pivot and started living where they wanted to live throughout the U.S. And foreign investments went down quite a bit. But then they jumped right back up. And by the beginning of 2022, probably the biggest peak, and also the spring of 2021. And it just was chugging along, and the economy was coming back really quickly. And then our good friends in inflation, the government here really needed to tamper things down because spending was at a giant high. Housing prices, well, some people were able to come in and buy, many weren't. And the government here decided that the feds decided we need to slow this down. Otherwise, there's going to be a few winners and everybody else is going to be a loser. And so they have done that. And the way we see that, one giant way, is with the interest rates to borrow money to get into a home. So we've seen rates go up from as low, I think high twos at one point, but really in the threes. If you hit 4, that seemed high. Now we're at about 6.5%. Up to 7, depending on what type of loan you have. It can be higher. If you're an investor, you're going to see rates a tad bit higher. And what else can I tell you about this? That is just something to factor in. So if you're an all-cash buyer, you can park your money here in the U.S., which might be a great place to do that. And if you're going to borrow funds to invest in a home, that's an option too. It's just going to cost you more up front. And it's important that agents work with you to weigh out what are the costs for rent, or what kind of income will you get for rents to balance it out. Real estate typically, in my opinion, is a long-term hold. Ooh, I'm seeing I have one person on here. So I'm going to continue to go on because I know we're going to be using this on the board, but I want to make sure that people can hear us. Okay. So I wanted to know, excuse me, kind of jittering here. I wanted to go over 15 things that are super important for foreign investors, because learning to invest is one thing, but understanding, I'm going to take a break here. Mesa, I'm wondering if we fell offline. You still there, Alex?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Well, let's keep on going on because I know it's important and they will be using this, and we'll just talk through it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Oh, Ahmed is listening. Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much for chiming in there. Okay. So here are some very important things. Thank you, Muhammad. Appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Okay. Top 15 things every foreign investor should consider. Now, this is coming from what we call the Austin Board of Realtors. And Austin is a very welcoming city, and they want people to understand and feel welcome here. And so here are a couple of things that I'm going to have you jot down. Hi, Adil. Thank you so much for chiming in. I really appreciate that. So ownership of real estate property. Real estate property versus personal property. So real estate property, when you see those terms, that means a home, an apartment, a condominium, something that is, it's called real estate property here. So there are no restrictions on the ownership of real property, also known as real estate, by a foreign national in the U.S. And that is a good thing. Both U.S. and non-U.S. residents are afforded the legal right and privilege, and there are very few differences in the purchasing process, minus probably the lending is super important, and how and where you actually close. Okay, so many homes, especially in the Austin area, are new. One of our biggest red flags right now, and why our economy is so strong in Austin, is there's not enough houses. So builders are building new houses, and then there's another category, resale, homes that have already been built that are being turned over again. So many of these new homes are in homeowner associations. That's what we call them, HOAs. So you might want to jot down HOA just in case that comes up. What that is it's a large community of homes. It can be from 15 homes to like hundreds of homes all in one area. They may share things like a pool, a school, but it's built by a developer or multiple home developers creating, we call it a community. And HOA dues are constantly something that's changing, and the regulations on them, what's disclosed and what have you. It is not a bad thing, but it's important to understand them. So as you're looking for a home with an agent, if you choose that you have to have a new home, or you're even buying a resale in there, it's just something that you talk with the agent so you understand the costs involved, the benefits, and if there's an issue. Also, Alex, as a lender, they factor that in also on your risk and payments, etc. Now, if someone's coming over and going to live here, in the home that you purchase, that's a primary home. If you buy it and you want to rent it out, it's an investment property. And so it's when you buy as an investment property, there's slightly different rules when you're lending, different costs, etc. And obviously other things once the house is closed, who's gonna rent from you. So it's important to make sure that you understand the differences. You know, there's many reasons to invest in real estate, but there's two standout factors that are currency and portfolio diversification, right? It's a way to benefit and hedge against inflation. And economists in many studies have proven that global diversification in investment properties results in decreased volatility and increases your investment for your portfolio. So that may for some sound, whoa, I just want to buy one, but sometimes you can buy one and then over time your portfolio will grow. So everybody on this call, you know, you'll understand by the end of this to start thinking about, why do I want to invest somewhere else? Okay. Buyer and seller representation. I'm not going to go too deep on this, but this talks about when you're buying a home, if you're the purchaser versus the seller, right? You need representation on each side. One person, ideally, especially in Texas, shouldn't be representing both parties. You want someone to protect yourself. So when you're buying from a community, you still want a real estate agent representing you as a buyer. In that transaction, the seller is the builder. And lots of people love their new homes, but just understand a seller, a builder has different, they're representing their company. Where if we buy a home that has another family is or person is selling, right? That listing agent is representing a human being as well as the house. And it's just important. You want to be protected. That's what agents do. And Texas is very stringent that I, as an agent, I'm not out to benefit myself. I'm out to protect and serve you as my client. And that's very important. Yeah, and I take that very, very seriously. Okay. It's great to get paid when I sell a house, but if you aren't happy, then I'm not happy. And I will spend probably more time talking you out of houses until we find the right house for you in the right location, financial, etc. Texas is a non-disclosure state. And the reason I bring that up is that when you're working with Alex or a lender, or when you purchase a home, Texas is, and I'm going to read this because it's a little bit technical, but real estate records liens on a house, mortgage information in many of the municipalities throughout the U.S. are transparent and available online. But in Texas, a buyer or seller is not required to disclose the sales price of a property to anyone or any entity whatsoever. Real estate prices are not recorded to the public. Now, I can see them because I'm a real estate agent. Alex, I can't chime in if you do or don't, but it's a privacy thing. And Texas has decent privacy laws. Other states like Seattle, it's all over the place. And for some people, that matters. So I just want to bring that up. Okay, the cost components. Okay, unlike many other countries, the purchase price of a residential property includes all the appliances that transfer over, and we'll get into some of the nuances of that later today. Light fixtures, window treatments, unless expressly excluded in the purchase and sale agreement. The initial purchase cost includes the initial purchase plot. I'm not going to go over that. I apologize. The other costs that you're going to want to think about when you're purchasing a home. So let's say here's home A and it says it's $200,000. There's closing costs on top of that. And that's something that Alex can speak to. But there are things that we have to make sure you have an additional resources to pay for. And then once you close, there's going to be your regular taxes, maintenance for a home, things to help keep your home of value so that this truly is an investment. It's not like a nice bag or a leather wallet or it needs to hold its value. And so you do have to, think about how are we going to upkeep it. Sometimes I get questions about visas. Well, I'm fairly knowledgeable about visas. I used to do a lot of visa processing when I was working in HR. I'm not an expert for this, but I will connect you with people if you have additional questions. But Austin and Central Texas are top destinations for foreign nationals seeking to live and work in the U.S. And the immigration options available for international home buyers to remain in the U.S. for significant periods really depends on the various circumstances for yourself. So there's not a blanket, hey, you can do this or you can do that. For example, the most common options for many is to obtain an E-2 treaty investor visa. I'm sure many of you have heard of H-1B professional worker visas. That can take a long time. There's lotteries, etc. There's L-1s, which are directly attached to an organization, and they're not transferable, unlike an H-1B. And there's even an EB-5 immigrant investor permanent resident. So I'm not going to have my workshop focus on immigration, but obviously if you're buying to have this as a primary residence, there are various options and you'd want to speak to an immigration attorney, but I wanted to bring that up because that is something important. And then individual taxpayer identification number. So a U.S. citizen or eligible foreigner can obtain a social security number. Obviously, for resident aliens and non-resident aliens not eligible to receive a social security number, the IRS issues an ITIN, which is an individual taxpayer identification number, ITIN, that allows them to file U.S. tax returns and apply for credit regardless of a person's immigration status. The ITIN mortgage loan program was developed to enable those without a social security number to buy and finance a home in the U.S. That's all I will say, because that's more Alex's bucket. But again, these are just things to be thinking about so that you can be empowered as you move forward with this journey. Okay. Mortgage financing for foreign nationals. I'm just going to touch on this. And again, when Alex speaks, he can elaborate. But U.S. banks and mortgage companies may offer primary residence and investor mortgages for foreign nationals. Each bank or mortgage lender will provide different types of loan products with maximum loan limits, underwriting criteria, reserve requirements. In our strong sellers market, the consistent low inventory, more buyers opt to purchase in cash and cash-like mortgage products, and we can discuss what that means. If paying with money, be prepared to show proof of funds and documentation. They're going to question over and over and over, right when you begin, during the process, right before you close, wiring large sums of money. So I'll probably just say this right now. Fraud is an issue. And so it is always important that you listen to the title company who actually closes, and you only get information for wiring from your title company. Please write that down. Even if you just write fraud aware, wire funds only from information from your title company. Super important, because nobody wants to send off their hard-earned money. You're welcome. Absolutely. Just so important. You don't want to just send it in a thin air. And wiring from Austin to Austin is nerve-wracking. So doing it halfway around the world, the last thing we want is anyone to be put in that position. Okay. There are opportunity zones. These are areas that have tax incentives as economic development tool that allows people to invest in distressed areas. The incentive aims to spur the economic development and job creation in distressed communities by providing tax benefits to investors. Not a strong expert in this, but if that's something that really stands out to you, my role is to not try to take the business and learn along the way with you. My job will be to find the best person for any situation, if it's not my area, and then refer you to them so that hopefully I can build trust with you today that who I connect you with, they're top tier. And that's how I roll. I don't, having the trust between your realtor, if it's me or another realtor, that is utmost important, especially again, when you're on the other side of the planet. Okay. I'm going to leave that for there, but it is interesting, and it is a way to spur growth and areas. For instance, Detroit was an opportunity zone. I'm sure there's still areas. I'm sure there's opportunity zones within the south of the U.S. So interesting topic and the way that to spur growth, because like Pakistan, we are a very, very large country, and not everybody is doing great. And so that's the way we spur that, amongst other ways. I'm not going to go into it right this second, but new builds, builders and developers or their sales associates, also known as the seller, will be representing the company, not the buyer. So if new builds is important, we will absolutely talk about it. Some build companies will say, hey, use our financing company. We're going to give you amazing incentives that may or may not work as far as being qualified as much as someone like Alex. And Alex, maybe you could touch on that also when we get to talking with you, just because I bet that's a big question. Tax-related matters, although foreign buyers are afforded the same rights and privileges as the U.S. citizens and residents, they commonly make a few mistakes. So a foreign national sale or transfer of sale of U.S. property is subject to 15% withholding tax of the purchase price at the time of the sale. This is something called FIRPTA, F-I-R-P-T-A. And this affects you not when you're buying, but when you're selling, and again, your title company will alert this, but depending on your status, you may or may not have this transfer tax. So that is something not to go into deep detail today, but FIRPTA, FIRPTA, Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act.
And Jennipher,
Yes, sir.
do you know if they can do a 1031 exchange as well and avoid that?
That is an excellent question, and I don't know the answer. I'm very familiar with 1031s, but I have an excellent contact at IPX, which is a 1031 exchange, folks. It's a little off topic, but it is a vehicle to be able to sell property and then exchange it for like property and avoid taxes. Well, let me back up. To defer taxes. Okay. So if I had, and I've done this. So let's say I had a rental property in Seattle, Washington, and I felt either it was costing me too much, or it had, for whatever reason, I wanted to sell. Maybe I wanted to invest somewhere else that was having a better return. I could sell this home for, say, $500,000. And then I use a qualified intermediary. I'm going to use this company, IPX, personally. I think they're fantastic. They hold the money as you sell it. You have 45 days from when you sell your property in Seattle to identify a new property that you want to get under contract. And it needs to be an investment property. You can't sell your primary home and then invest in an investment property. So it has to be one rental. We're exchanging it. And after 45 days, you have to close within 180 days. Now, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but what happens is you aren't required to pay any sort of capital gains on this property. And I'm not going to go into your levels and what have you. So it's a way to defer it until hopefully maybe your income and earning power is in a lower tax bracket, or you don't sell the property. If you pass away and it's in a will, there is an opportunity where you get to skirt. You avoid tax because it falls into our tax system is quite complex. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that I am a tax expert. It's a good question. This is why I love Alex, because Alex is thinking the way that you should be thinking, but I don't have the answer, and I'm never going to tell you guys something if I don't have 100%. I don't know the answer to that, Alex. That's something I could find out. Thank you. Okay. Substantial presence test. These are technical things, but still you want to think about them. Okay. It's called SPT. The substantial presence test is used by our IRS in the US to determine whether an individual who is not a citizen or lawful permanent resident qualifies as a resident or a non-resident for tax purposes. And that goes back to FIRPTA. Okay. And again, I just want to finalize what that is. Although it is an added tax to foreign nationals selling US property, there are exemptions and structures that one can employ at the time of purchasing to minimize FIRPTA impact. If a seller is a foreign person and the buyer fails to withhold, the buyer must be held liable for U.S. estate taxes, property insurance, rental income, and determining if a seller meets the U.S. IRS substantial presence test in any given calendar year. And it's essential to discuss this with a tax professional. Okay. Your real estate agent can recommend, just like I mentioned, a CPA or an attorney to help with international taxes. And that's something that I'm not an expert, but I do know CPAs, and this is what I do in addition to buying and selling real estate with y'all, is to make sure that you have people to ask questions. So please, as you're diving into this very, I think, important way to diversify, just like anything else in life, make sure you understand the whole picture, not just the shiny part of it. Okay. Before you close, one thing is very interesting when you're working with a real estate agent is you may or may not be in Texas or in the US when you're doing this process. So what does that look like? And we want to make sure that the process itself, we do it digitally so you can see everything. Everything is transparent. That is something that's a little bit different sometimes with working with foreign investors. Some people feel very comfortable getting on WhatsApp, and we do a tour of the apartment. We show you online pictures. I answer questions. I'm an expert in a certain area. Just going through that so you feel as close as you can to being here without being here. Okay. And then the last thing is thinking about leasing and property management. If you are looking to buy an investment, if it's a building with multiple apartments, or if you're looking to buy an individual home, leasing and property management can range from single family homes, multifamily residences, duplexes, so 2 units, triplexes, and it's essential to work with an agent specializing in property management. So I have different property managers that I have researched from luxury to a standard entry-level home. Like I said, I have 3 different property managers I work with personally for my investments, and some are good and some aren't, and it really is just a critical piece to have in your tool belt. So I mean, you may or may not be able to find tenants easily. You want to make sure you have quality tenants. You want to make sure the home is being taken care of, etc. And these are expenses that can be tax deductible because they're helping your business. Some properties or jurisdictions may or may not allow short-term rentals at Airbnb, VRBO. A lot of people like that, and to use them on short-term versus long-term rentals. So some parts of the US, some cities, some sections of cities have different rules and regulations. So before you purchase any home with the intention of making it an Airbnb, I would absolutely recommend that you think about first, can I get a permit to have an Airbnb? That's a whole nother workshop, but just for an example, in Austin proper, they don't issue permits if you just buy a home and you want to rent it out as an Airbnb. However, if it's a property that has 2 homes on it, or a main home and a smaller cottage, if you live in one of them, you are able most likely to get a permit to have a short-term rental for one of them. And I think the thinking behind that is that you as an owner on the property will be able to watch and basically make sure that the neighborhood is not disturbed. There was for a while, they were deemed party houses, and neighbors around would get frustrated because someone new is there every day. Now they're a little more cautious in doling out those. There is typically not an issue in getting long-term renters in there. Again, though, lots of caveats here. If you were going to buy a new home in a new community, some builders will not sell to an investor, especially during COVID. People wanted to come and invest money, but they were trying to build a community that was just that. It was a community. And there wasn't enough housing. And so the builders often, which was, I think personally, a good thing, people needed homes to live in full time. And so they put the kibosh on many investors being able to purchase a brand new home. I can think of 2 that were in the outlying areas. Now things are changing because buyers seem to be on the fence a little bit with the higher rates, and we're going to go into that. So the leasing and property management, I have experience, good, bad, and otherwise. And so you definitely want to find an agent that understands that process and can answer your questions, or understands the process enough. So if there's a specialty or something legal, we can ask the right questions and get the right people to you. I have talked a ton. Does anyone want to drop a question in right now? I'm going to take a drink of water. Anyone? Oh, okay, let's keep on going. Oh, wait. Are there specific laws and regulations that I should be aware? Oh, good question. Yes, is the short answer. One of them is the Airbnb. Austin is a very large area, just like any other community in the U.S. And there's counties, there's sections of town, and there's all kinds of different. There's not consistency for different rules and regulations. As far as Austin, even Austin, right? There's Austin, there's unincorporated Austin, then there's surrounding communities that from afar people go, I want to invest in Austin, but there's Round Rock, Cedar Park, Georgetown, all these different counties right around that are still, and everyone saying it is individual. So it's kind of a loaded question. But you want to understand property tax. So this is not a law or a regulation, but different parts of town. You may have a $500,000, I'm just using this number, $500,000 home, but the property tax in one part of town may be 1.8 or 1.9%. And that's something that you pay every month, typically, or once a year. That helps the pay the infrastructure for the area, schools, roads, electricity, lots of other different things. And then other parts of town may be up to 3%, which is very high. I will tell you, I've brought this up in others. Tesla obviously has a large presence in Austin now. It is just on the outskirts of Austin. And there really was nothing there. When Elon decided to buy that property, he wanted to create a whole nother part of town, and also less expensive, of course, because you're not directly, you're relatively close to the airport. So the property tax in that part of town is quite high because there's nothing there and they have to build the infrastructure. So I think really, as opposed to rules and regulations, it's thinking about what are my additional costs and going in with your eyes wide open. You may get a house for $250,000 there, but pay 3% versus $500,000 and pay 2.1%. Property tax is tax deductible up to $10,000. Again, you'll have to speak to your tax advisor for exact for your situation. But those are things to think about, because over $10,000, at least for a U.S. citizen, you just pay it. And it's higher in Texas than some other states. But also, I think what makes Texas so incredibly attractive is the robustness. And I do want to get to the economy because I think that's super, super important. I see a couple more questions. Yes. Can I take a loan from an American bank and buy a property in America without coming there? Yes. And Alex is going to speak to that, Ahmed, good question. Alex is going to take note of that. Can we buy a property by sitting outside of the U.S. and set it up for rent? Same as, okay, I think I get that. Can you buy a property? Can I buy a property by sitting outside of the U.S. and set it up for rent? Okay, I think, Zainab, what I'm hearing is, can you buy a property while you live overseas and, coordinate with property managers or friends or family who might be here and rent it out? Yes, you can. Excuse me. Very different, but I own some homes that I rent out in different states, and it's still an effort, right? You have to coordinate with people that you trust. And if it doesn't work out, you switch it out. But I haven't had too many negative experiences. So yes, you can. Definitely a big part of why we're on the line today. If I am an American national residing in Pakistan, can I buy a property and be liable to pay taxes in Pakistan? I don't know the answer to that, Ambreen. It's an excellent question. And I actually have a couple friends who are over in Lahore right now, who are U.S. citizens who own property in Pakistan. And I can find the answer for that. And also, I believe, again, we'd want to connect you to a proper tax, especially somebody over in Pakistan. I'm not sure what part, if you're in Karachi, Lahore, or somewhere otherwise, but it is a super smart question to ask. Okay, yay! Taha is in the house. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, Taha Menon. Let's see. Okay. I think the limit was hit. Yeah. Well, someone dropped out and in comes Taha. That would be great. I'm in Lahore. Another question: which state would have the best property value and be a good investment? You know, we're just going to jump to this question because it's probably one of my favorites. Great question, Ambreen. Okay. The United States, as you know, 50 states, 48 of them connected. Alaska and Hawaii off on their own, but wonderful states. Property tax is something I always think of. Job and growth are critical. And I really think about this as where I want to live and invest. I'll tell a little story here. I lived in Seattle, Washington. Property tax is average there. It's about 1.6, 1.7% of the value of your property. Okay. I moved to Texas about 10 years ago, bought a home. Homes are very inexpensive compared to Seattle, bordering hundreds of thousands of dollars less. And you get a lot more house. So I bought a house. And then I learned about the property tax here. And it's a little bit higher. Quality of life. Okay. And you may say, well, I'm not going to live in the US. I don't care about the quality of life. But of course you want to think about the quality of life. You want to think about the schools. You want to think about the weather. You want to think about environment. And the reason why is you want to think about who's going to rent your house, who wants to be wherever you're buying. To buy the cheapest house, it may be inexpensive for a reason. There may be no jobs, horrible weather. And I say horrible weather meaning destruction. And so you really want to be smart and thoughtful in where. So tech is big in the United States, just like it is around the world, right? So things have mixed up a little bit in the last couple of years because now many people are starting to work from home. So it may not matter. But so sorry, Amber, just to say the best property value as far as a state, it's hard to say. And that's a bad answer, I'm sure. However, let me pull up some information here so I can speak to you a little bit about an economist that I spoke to this week, who is an expert, big surprise, in the economy. So let me just get this up here. Okay, go. Okay. I opened up our conversation today talking about this, but Texas is one of 3 states that has really roared out of COVID. With COVID, it was great, and then it wasn't so great because of our inflation and our government, really trying to slow things down intentionally to help build people up. And real estate is getting a pullback. So I do want to tell you that the economy in the U.S. in general, different parts are being hit the same, are being hit individually in different ways. But Texas, Utah, and Idaho, Boise, Idaho, that is where Hewlett Packard is headquartered. Those 3 states are really coming out of inflation and COVID, 2 totally different effects, the best. If you ask Americans what they think about Utah and Idaho, I bet most of them would say, what? But they're great places. Idaho probably is on par with Texas as far as increase in values. Increase in values just like the stock market, you don't always want to buy when it's high, correct? So you have to factor in, will it remain a strong place to live? So as your agent, this is really a one-on-one conversation. I do want to say this, though. I know a lot of times folks from outside the country may go, New York, and what about New York and California? Everyone's talking about it. It's a land of opportunity. Those two states have the most complex rules when it comes to real estate. They have very high taxes for income, rules and regulations. California, amazing state, so many different environments. However, when we talked about weather, we have earthquakes, you've got fires, you've got floods. So you do want to think about that. In the state of Texas, jumping to Texas, right? Houston's very popular with international buyers, but in the last 5 to 10 years, global warming, if you want to appreciate it or not appreciate it, seems to be affecting different areas of the planet. And Houston has been hit with floods like nobody's business, or hurricanes. And a lot of people, when I hold open houses every week, are coming from Houston because Austin is set in, huge tech community, open-minded, welcoming, tons of VC funds. Taha has brought Founders Club International here. I don't know if he's going to get.
Jennipher, I actually have a question regarding this.
Yeah.
So as you said that Houston is tech savvy, it's full of newcomers, new businesses, it's full of life right now. So what if I'm looking for a place in Austin, but I don't want to be in the center of everything, I don't want to be in a chaos. Are there some neighborhoods, is there some place in Austin where I could, go towards the more calmer side of the place, maybe? Just
Sure,
within
absolutely.
Austin?
Within Austin. Okay. Well, you brought up Houston, but I'll jump over to Austin. Okay. Yeah, Austin has something for everyone. You can be in the city in a brand new condominium in a tall building looking over the river. You could be out on a ranch, hundreds of acres. It's probably an hour away, 2 hours away. Obviously, one thing you're always going to want to think about is if you have internet connection. You can live in a suburb community within a half an hour away. It used to be that the farther away from Austin you moved, the cheaper it was, but that's not so much. I mean, Texas is a second largest state in the country, and Dallas, Houston, and Austin are kind of this triangle, and there's some sub-cities, El Paso and San Antonio. Yes, but I will help folks within probably a 75-mile radius of Austin because that's the area I know and can serve you best. But I am partnered with other agents that focus in those areas. If you want a ranch or something along those lines, then I would connect you with a land and ranch person. But you do need to understand what you want out of the property.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
for answering my question.
I'm going to read a question here. I've recently lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Excellent. I was born just outside of Nashville, and I love it as a place to live. However, the property is rising Yes. Oh, I feel like this question was fed to me. There is a state south of Tennessee called Alabama. I am a large investor in North Alabama in a town called Huntsville. Every state in the country has its own vibe. And I can't speak directly, but it's always important to do your research. And I was impressed with Nashville because they build rocket ships there. It was very inexpensive, and property tax was low there. So there's pluses and minuses, right? You may get a home for now $150,000, and it may go to $160,000. Whereas in Austin, if you had bought a home at $400,000, it may be worth $650,000. So there's lots of things to think about. And I think it's really important, if you're interested in investing, that we jump on a call and we talk about what's important to you, what your capabilities are, what your finances look like. and what your end goal is. So that's always going to be important. And I will not hold back on finding and discussing different areas of the U.S. The goal is to make sure that you get what you need.
Yeah.
So I did want to, I really wish I could share the screen with you. It's kind of bugging me. But Texas, I am going to plug Texas a little bit. It's not a perfect state, but it's pretty awesome. We are the #1 exporter in the U.S. for 20 years in a row. And I say that because, again, economic stability. We are the 10th largest economy in the world, Texas. That's pretty impressive. We have airports, we have highways, seaports, foreign trade zone, railroad systems. We have tons of not only the kind of desert and city, but also coastline. We got up against Mexico. We have no personal or corporate income tax, which has been a huge boom for Texas because and this is a little controversial, but large companies are finally coming to, I don't know why it took them so long, but Texas extends tax breaks for some companies that come on, companies that come on in. That's one reason why our property tax is a little high, but some people are willing to pay that property tax because they know they're going to have an awesome job. Okay. We are a leading job creator in 2021. In 2021, think about that, right in the middle of COVID, we created over 690,000 jobs just in Texas. So we are the largest energy producing state in all of the United States with a turbine, solar panel, oil, and let's see, we also have one of the highest graduation rates in the country at 90%. Which seems very high, but that's what I've been told. Texas has led the nation in high-tech exports for the 9th consecutive year of $50 billion. So, yeah, I just saw your eyes get big. There's a lot going on, and the government within Texas, every state's different, but their focus is to build business with the hopes that it generates jobs, and then people come here and live here. And even though the market has been softening a little bit, there are not enough homes here. So to buy an asset that is in demand is probably good value, supply and demand. I think they teach that everywhere, right? So you don't want to just willy-nilly throw a dart and buy something. You need to have a real estate professional to help you understand what it looks like, and again, to suit the needs that are going to be important to you. Questions on that? Nope. Okay. Let's see. Strong sellers market, right, was in the spring. Then we've moved over. It's a neutral market right now, meaning buyers can find homes and right now not have a lot of competition. So you can get at list price, 97% is the average in Austin right now of a home that is priced correctly. Again, that's what a real estate agent does. We run numbers and comps to make sure that what you're purchasing is of value, that you're not getting skunked, as I call it, that you are making a sound financial purchase. Housing inventory has gone from about a year ago. It was pretty tight. It went from about 3,000 homes up to 11,000 homes in September. I have noticed and again, I'm talking about Austin proper. We have seen the lower level of homes get eaten up very quickly in some areas of town. So inventory is continuing to come on, but I think people are getting used to the rates. Nobody knows if rates are going up or going down. If someone tells you that, they don't know. But I did hear an economist who's fairly well versed. He believes that rates will go up by the end of the summer. I'll leave that for Alex. I would say right now we're in a relatively neutral market. I like to gauge the market being buyer or seller, not on the number of homes, but how quickly they're beaten up and how many months of inventory. So a neutral market really is 6 months. Right now, we're at about 4 months 4.5 months of inventory. So it's still okay time to buy or to sell your home, but buyers are in a totally different place than they were a year ago. Let's see. The other thing I didn't get to tell you about Texas is people are continuing to move here. Stats are showing that 158 people move to Austin every day. Someone uses the analogy of an airplane full of people every day move here. So if you're moving here, whoa, I got some good feedback there. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Taha, great question. Why is there such a boom in Austin when COVID's going on? Well, a lot of people were living in San Francisco. We're living in New York. We're living in these tech hubs. It was very personal, and the VCs were there, and it meant something. It was of status to live in these tech cities. But all of a sudden, when you can work remotely, why would you want to live in San Francisco, pay the taxes they do, fear of fear of earthquakes, and really, usually most people do not buy homes except for the ultra wealthy in San Francisco, because the prices are exorbitant. I mean, homes well over $1 million, $2, $3, $4 million, or most tech workers who make a lot of money were renting 3 or 4 people in an apartment, each paying $2,000. When you can come to Austin at the time and have your own 800 square foot home for $1,400, or you could buy a home for $350,000, $400,000. Plus the weather. The weather here is great. Is it hot in the summer? Yes, that's why we have swimming pools here and air conditioning. There's a large Indian community within Austin. And that's nothing new. Just sound investments, great tech opportunities, family. Immigration has gotten a little tougher in the U.S. recently. That's for sure. But again, you can live in Austin because you want to live in Austin now and still work for companies based around the country and also based around the world. Taha, if you would jump on for a sec, maybe you could just speak. Why did FCI come to Austin? Putting them on the spot.
Hi, Jennipher. How are you?
Hi there. Good.
So, really good question. I actually came in. I think Alex is on call too. Hi, Alex. How are you? Can you guys still hear me?
I can still hear you. I think Alex is probably muted, or he may have frozen. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sure. Okay, perfect. So we primarily decided to move to Austin because for the past year and a half, we've been we study developing ecosystems in tech. And I think it really did happen when Elon kind of moved his, with Tesla and Apple and Google and all these big, massive companies opening operations. You have so many young people move there. And when young people and tech, that always allows for a better economy. So we just followed that, and then based on that, I just wanted to, for me, building a community with, especially an international business community that we have. It's a very unique community because we're very big on hospitality, we're very big on culture, and sometimes the East Coast is great, but I think it's doing business in Austin is it looks more like home. It gives more of a homely feel. So I think that people in Austin are warmer, and they tend to do better in an international business scenario when it comes to the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan region, and the South Asian region. They just connect better, and they're more warmer, and they're the way they do business and the way it's a more human way of doing business. And that's how business is done here. It's more relationship based. and people actually spend time to get to know you. So based on that cultural aspect and also the economy, we said I think this is where we should be situated, at least um, in North America, so that we can create that global impact. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And guys, I wanted to, we have no like parameter on this, but as mentioned, I want to talk about the process of how to buy a house and the timing, but I'm going to jump because I bet a lot of people, are very interested in the financing aspect. And also, Alex has been sitting in his car for over an hour and hasn't said a word. So, Alex, can we transfer over now and you talk to us about financing? And folks, if you have questions, drop in the private chat. And last thing,
I would also like you guys to add
Yeah, just
how
let me know
the
if you guys
financing
can't hear
aspect
me
would be different
properly.
for
Um,
international investors and national investors.
oh, can you
go
guys hear
ahead,
me?
Alex. Yeah, Alex, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on a couple things you guys were talking about. Me and my wife, we own properties in multiple places. She comes from Poland and London, so she owns property in both those countries. And we own property in Ohio. I've owned in Tennessee, Kentucky. Most of our stuff is California and Texas, so there's a lot of differences in those places. But Austin, I think, like to touch on what Jennipher and Taha said, it's pretty unique with all the companies going there. It's supposed to be the new big huge hub in the U.S. and I think there's a lot of stability there. Somebody wrote a book about out of state investing, and they said the U.S. is kind of like a farm. Like some places are better for growing wheat, some places are better for growing corn. So people tend to look for appreciation versus cash flow. I think you're talking about Alabama. There might be better cash flow there, but the appreciation might not be as high. But places like Austin, you're going to get huge appreciation where maybe in 1 or 2 years you're going to make $100,000, $100,000 or something sometime off your appreciation. So I think it's a great place to be, and it's pretty stable and safe with all the job growth. The other thing is I have properties in California and Austin. California is not very renter friendly. There's a lot of rent control. Some things you want to think about when buying is how much control do you have over your renters and what can you do. Texas is very friendly for that. So Austin, there's not going to be that many restrictions for landlords there. So it's a nice place for landlords as well. In terms of the financing, we do have loans and financing for foreign nationals. There's multiple lenders that do this. So there's going to be little differences between the lenders. Some allow F1 visas for students if you have any kids going here, and some are allowing B2 visas. But usually there's some type of visa requirement. You don't have to be in the U.S. when you're buying. The one caveat on that is you will need a notary if you're buying outside the U.S. So usually in other countries, it's really hard to find a U.S. notary unless you go to the U.S. embassy. And sometimes they can be backed up and it might take, weeks to get an appointment there. So I guess doing it internationally, the hardest part is maybe the notary part. I think some companies will require you to have your money in the U.S. for 60 days. So have a couple bank statements and have the money seasoned and being here. Some companies will allow it to come from overseas. So it really is going to depend on your financial situation, which lender and who we're going with and what opportunity we find for you. But there's I don't want to say unlimited, but there's lots of possibilities for financing for foreign nationals is what we call them. Once you are here more often or doing business here, if you have one of the ITIN numbers Jennipher was talking about, that opens you up for a couple more programs. I think you have to have qualified income in the U.S. to apply for a ITIN, but once you have one of those, it opens you up a little bit more. And then obviously once you get a green card and things like that, it opens up for more and more loan possibilities too. But even my own situation, buying and all the clients I've helped, I've had to get pretty creative with finding financing for them. Any financing questions? I like to talk about leverage with a lot of my clients, even the ones who qualify in the US, because you could put 5% down, you could put 20% down. I turned 40 this year, but I still consider myself, somewhat young. I'd rather leverage my money while I'm younger. So I'd rather put 5% down on a property and maybe buy 4 properties instead of 1 property. If you put 5% down and you make 100,000, or you put 20% down and you make 100,000, your return's better if you put 5% down. So I talk a lot about leverage with my clients too. Let me see what the questions are coming in. So as a builder, perspective, does Austin is a good place for launching a society consists of 200 houses. So are you thinking of doing some building in Austin, Ahmed, and just doing new construction and financing that? That may be a good Jennipher question too, but yeah, so I think Austin's a really good place to build, and there's a lot of people building houses there. I think that's a little harder to navigate internationally unless you have a really good team. But let me know if I'm not answering the question properly.
Yeah, I do want to jump in there just quickly, Alex. And it is a great question. It's a very loaded question. One thing you're going to have to make sure you're tied into is permitting, right? If it's your own house, if you bought a giant piece of land for yourself, hundreds of acres, anything you're going to build, you still need to get a permit from the county that you're in, and that can take time and money. So just because you buy something doesn't mean you can build it. And so it's a good question. It's a good question that is a complicated answer, and that's a great one-on-one question to ask. And then we can work through how to get the proper answer for that. But like Alex said, Austin's a great place to build and expand, but that's a very big process because you're really becoming an organization when you do that. And you're competing against some very big national builders. So it's not a poo-poo. It's just, that's not simple. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, you can ask Taha, if something's a challenge, I'm not going to paint it glossy for you. I just want to make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay.
Yeah, and so
sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Somebody asked, what loans can foreign investors get,
Yes.
and can you also buy cash? So I think, Jennipher was talking earlier, you can definitely buy cash, and then you're not paying any interest on your money. Interest is tax deductible sometimes, so that's more of an accounting question. But I think it comes down to me for leverage. Like if you buy a $500,000 property in cash, could you have bought 5 properties with 20% down? Then you have a portfolio of 5 properties instead of just 1 property that's paid off. And if you're an investor and you're renting it out, there's going to be rents coming in. So the rents will either cover most or all or more than all of your mortgage, depending on how much money you're putting down. So you can do anything in between. You can put money down, you can buy cash, or you could put, more than the minimum down so you have a little bit more profit coming in per month. My goal as an investor, it's building my portfolio. So I'm tending to put the least amount of money I can down so that I can acquire more properties. But I can only tell you, like, my opinion as an investor. The decision you make is right for you. So some people may want to park their cash here. They may want to buy all cash. They may want to have more cash flow and no mortgage. That question is going to be something that's tailored kind of to each individual differently.
Alex, can you, in line with that, because Osama had a question about PMI, can you talk a little bit about, as a home buyer for themselves or as an investor, what is typical for international buyers if they're not buying all cash, percentage-wise to put down, and how does that affect PMI?
Yeah, so I think in terms of primary residence and investment, I think most foreign national loans are going to want you to buy it as an investment, at least on paper. So there's that, but I think you can get by. I have one lender that'll do 25%. A lot of them do 30% down. I may be able to find one with 20% down, but I don't have that confirmed yet. So usually 25 to 35% down is the minimum.
And with that, then mortgage insurance isn't necessary in that case?
Yeah, so if we're looking at regular loans for like a U.S. citizen, we call them conventional loans. If you put less than 20% down, like 5% down, you're going to pay private mortgage insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is basically, let's say you put 0% down on a house, which is not possible right now unless you're a veteran.
Yeah.
But let's say you put nothing down on a house, and let's say the market drops for some reason. Like, what's to stop you from walking away? You have no money in the game. So it's more risky for the lender. And so their break-even point is like 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And below that, you pay mortgage insurance, which kind of protects the lender in case there's any default or something like that. So it's kind of a protection for the lender for less than 20% down. So for a national loan, we don't have to worry about that. A lot of these loans are called non-QM or non-qualified mortgages because it's harder to validate income outside the U.S. So we're usually going off a different qualifier like the rents or bank statements. And a lot of those non-QM loans don't have mortgage insurance, even if you're putting less than 20% down too. So mortgage insurance, I think, is something that you wouldn't have to worry about. Okay, that's the question we were just talking about. Okay.
Cool. I want to quickly just drop into the chat for folks. There we go. I know we're going a little bit past. More than welcome to stay on board, but I wanted to give connection or some links there. My link tree, it has a way to connect with me via email. Also let me know what's important to you. And then my website, which is also actually within the link tree, but feel free to click on those and connect. Love connecting on LinkedIn. You can email me. The email is going to be in there. I'll respond. Somebody responded in the last couple of days, and I appreciated that. Social media also just talks about what's going on, what I'm doing on a day-to-day. You'll be able to see some of the properties, different areas. Alex, also please drop any type of contact information or website that you think would be helpful. There he goes. Alex does like real estate. He also has a link tree.
Jennipher, I will definitely share your links on our socials as well. So whoever
wonderful
wants to with you, they can easily connect with you.
Perfect. Good. I would love if anyone's comfortable just dropping in. Is there anybody online with us that is planning on coming to the U.S., maybe for work, or already has invested in the U.S.? And if you don't want to share, you don't have to. Just kind of trying to understand the makeup of our group today. Zishan, great. You can see that stuff above. Yes. My family is moving to the U.S. All right. Well, wonderful. Have you decided what part of the U.S., or is that something you're still working on? Okay. No need to share if you don't want to. Houston or Austin. I tell you what, Zishan, afterwards, let's definitely connect. I'd love to share both. I mean, there's some wonderful things about Houston, and there's some wonderful things about Austin. I'm familiar with both cities, and would love to share that information with you. Yes, great, wonderful. I'm so excited. I've just, over the last couple of months working with Taha, I have just had the privilege of learning so much about Pakistan and surrounding countries, and just incredible people. I've, Maxine Cunningham from Pick My Brain. If you have seen her startup that Taha is just braced onto, also I encourage you to go to Pick My Brain and learn more about it. It's a great epicenter for knowledge and this knowledge economy. Sorry to get off topic, but knowing people from around the world, there's no better gift. Getting perspective. We learn all our differences, but more importantly, we get to find out what's really important to all of us. So I really love that. What? Sure, come in. Yes, absolutely. You can rewatch this, and I am more than happy to repeat myself. So I just wanted to. Alex, is there any tidbit before I kind of cut you off there, but I want to go over what it looks like to buy a house in the U.S. because it's quite different from around the world. But I didn't want you to, yes.
No, I think that's a good thing. I was going to mention, my fiance is very knowledgeable about buying in London, and there they pay their property tax. I think it's called stamp duty up front when you buy the house. So it kind of makes it hard to sell the house because then you got to pay it again. Here, her opinion is it's very easy to get into the U.S. market, and it's a lot better investment even than London. Just with the appreciation and rents, we're paying property taxes monthly. We're not paying it all up front, so there's some differences like that. I think her opinion and a lot of other clients' opinions about the U.S. market and how to get into it and how lucrative it is, and how secure and safe it is. I think those are some good things to touch on. But just if you have any questions or anybody else has any more questions, I'm here. But you can go ahead and take over and talk about something different.
All right. Well, I wanted to just wrap up a little bit with the process, because it's always going to be, catered to you. And I'm sorry, I'm looking off to the side here. It's going to pull up something there. But in a nutshell, how long does it take? Okay. First and foremost, and one of them, you really have to talk to a lender if you're not using all cash, and you have to find an agent that you feel comfortable with. And you can reach out to an agent, chat with them, and if you don't like them, then you can say, I don't like you, and move on. Many agents will ask you to sign what's called a buyer's representation agreement. So it is non-truly binding, but what it says is, hey, agent, and the agent saying, hey, client, let's work together. We're not going to use other agents. It's kind of a no-no in residential real estate to work with multiple agents, because there's no skin in the game. That's why it's important you find someone that you can, feel comfortable with. You're going to be talking about personal stuff, maybe finances. Maybe talk, if we're talking to folks in Pakistan here or Saudi Arabia or London or wherever, you may be talking at 2 a.m. I may be in 2 a.m. Is that person reliable? Are they going to respond? Is someone like Alex, can I call him on the weekend and get a letter immediately to go to offer? I can tell you from speaking with Alex, and Taha's support also, Alex knows a lot of things a lot of other agents and other lenders don't, and I've been very impressed with him. I have a couple of lenders I work with, and I was very intentional in picking somebody on today's call that understands where you're at and what's important and how to work around. Not every lender is good with international buyers. So hopefully I've provided some value simply by putting Alex on this call today. He's also very kind. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jennipher.
Jennipher, why don't you also talk about how if someone is willing to invest in the US, they don't really need to even visit the US, and how you cater the entire process for them without them having to visit the US. So tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah. So we did touch on that a little bit. So as I go through this process, I'm going to tell you, and then you'll understand how I'm going to step in. So you're going to understand the market. That's what we're doing today, at least a little bit. We're scratching the surface. You're going to find an agent. An agent's going to talk to you about the pre-stuff first, right? And we can do that on WhatsApp. We can do that on a Zoom call. Any digital. I mean, the world is small in some ways, so it's important that we're in constant communication, and we're also on a communication that works for you. Some people don't want to show their face. Some people do. I am a personal agent. I personally, I want to get to know who you are and what's important to you. Okay, you're going to want to do the same with a lender, and challenge any lender that they understand what your specific needs are. If someone says FERPTA and they don't know what you're talking about, or they don't refer you to somebody, then you probably don't want to work with them. You have to be able to trust who you're working with. We're going to talk about target goal. Again, something you can do digitally just as well as you could be if we were meeting in my office. We have to understand the target goal for how long you want a property and what your goals are. We're going to determine how to finance. I pick you up and I put you with a lender, or you can find a lender. I recommend when you're purchasing, especially your first time, you are using a local lender to that area. That you might hear, oh, I can get an online lender and I'll save lots of money. I would absolutely recommend for your first transaction that you get a referral for a lender. I can't tell you what to do. You may have done stuff and have your own person, but I think, Taha recommending me, that might make you feel comfortable. I I think that's important. The world is not only nice people. There's also people out there who just want to take your money. So you want to be cautious about that. You're going to view homes. Well, that's a little hard when you're somewhere else besides the US, but I do it all the time. I do as best I can with WhatsApp. Many listings have fabulous photographs. Again, this goes back to the trust. You're going to do your research with the internet and Google. You're going to talk to people that you know. If you are not, this is a little side professional note, if you aren't on LinkedIn, I would recommend you're on LinkedIn. It's going to help you connect with people. It's going to help people that might be lending to you. People are going to want to know who you are. They may do that. They may check out, where'd you go to school? Where have you worked? Who do you know? I mean, that may not determine, obviously, in underwriting, but it's nice to have a presence. Okay. Then once we determine, if we've seen a handful of homes that meet your criteria, Taha can allude to this. I'm going to at least give my input if this is a house that makes sense. If I say it's not and you want to buy it, that's your decision. I'm not your boss. I walk alongside you to guide you the best that I can, but ultimately I work for you.
Yeah, of course. And what would be like, I mean, the first thing that you would tell your investor, someone who's interested in purchasing, what's the first thing that you would tell them? What's something that they should have on their plate, that they should be prepared for?
To talk about their finances, to have money, or be prepared. I mean, there really is. A lot of people don't like to talk about their money, but this is for lack of a better word, it's an intimate process in trust. It really is when you are an international buyer. Okay. You have to be open-minded to, you may be very focused on what's important to you. And that's great. That I love buyers that know what they want. But that really is the main thing, and then some trust with the right partners, because again, that is the process. Once you start seeing homes online, often the questions you need to ask are anything. If you have a question when you're working with someone thousands miles away, if you don't feel confident asking questions, you're probably going to be the person that loses in the end. So if a kitchen looks small, say that. Every culture has different, what you should and shouldn't. But when you find an agent in this case, and I don't want to go against any cultural norms, but I represent you, but you have to represent yourself as to what's important. Don't ever let your agent or a lender in this process tell you what to do. Okay, that's super important. Okay, never feel concerned that if you're frustrated, you should say to your realtor, something's not working here. Let's talk through this. Okay. And it sounds silly, but that is important when you're buying real estate. When you're negotiating. So, let's say we've identified the right home. Okay. You're going to ask all the questions you ever had with me and your lender. And then we're going to put an offer together. And in the US and in Texas, you use very specific forms. Okay. So if it's with a builder, it's going to be their forms. For every other home that's being resold, you are using, it's called a TAR, Texas Area Real Estate Contracts. They are created by attorneys. Texas does a great job of representing and protecting the consumer. That's you. So we'll negotiate. We'll figure out the prices. I do that by running compensation or comps in the area. Homes that have recently sold. Ultimately, you pick the price, but I will advise you and guide you, and then we will figure out the answer. Depending on the strength of the market, there may be additional costs that you pay for, such as title insurance, closing costs. It depends. Sometimes the buyer will pay for them. Sometimes the seller will. Sometimes they'll split them. It's negotiable. Okay. So we extend an offer. The person who's selling the home either says yes or no, but how about this price? So you negotiate. After you agree to a price, there's a period of time that's short, and it's short. It could be 3 to 7 days on going to get the home inspected. Well, again, you're not flying over to the US maybe for this inspection. How's that work? digital. I will go and attend the inspection, and I will try my best, because I really want you on WhatsApp to hear from the inspector, and I will advise for you great inspectors. I don't get to tell you who you can pick, but I've worked with some great ones. And we'll figure out a list of things that may not be perfect with a home, because most homes are not perfect, even the brand new ones. And what we do, dependent on the market, is we will then go back to the sellers and say, hey, we still want to buy it, but we need these 3 things fixed. And they're usually things that are of safety or code. So for instance, there's a hole in the roof. That the lender's going to tell you, you got to get that replaced. Or a window's cracked, or maybe the heating system needs to be tuned up, or maybe things like that. Maybe there's a crack somewhere. There's going to be some things on the list, depending on the environment when we're buying, that, it's not perfect. And you might have to pay for that yourself, right?
Jennipher, what about tell us maybe if I'm looking to invest, and the difference that I should be looking at when I'm looking to invest in USA and when I'm actually going to live there. What should I look for?
Yep.
What are the differences?
So the differences there could be 2 things. There were a couple people who said they were coming to live here, and they may want to get their foot in the door and buy a home, and then later on move out of it, but use it as a rental. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's your situation, you're going to want to have both hats on, right? Let's talk about investment first, because I think most people are that way. When you're looking for an investment property, low maintenance on the house, what's the outside made of? What's the weather like there? Does it flood there? I forgot to say that in Texas. You're going to always, your agent needs to help guide you with the floodplains. We have all kinds of maps. We want to make sure it's not going to flood. Otherwise, you need special insurance. Is it rentable? Like, you probably don't want to buy a home that has a really funny floor plan and 1 bathroom and it's bright pink. And, you want to, when you're buying an investment, you want to think, will somebody rent it? Is it in a community that has a good amount of renters? Are there a lot of jobs, people moving in who maybe don't want to live there forever, so they rent? How much is the rent average in that area? Does it make sense if I want to put down, if you want to put 100% and buy a house in cash, once the house is paid off, you're generating income minus property tax and stuff. But if you buy a $1 million house, or you pay $1 million for a house and the rent is $2,000 a month, you are going to have the appreciation of the home, but you're not going to be generating income, not initially. Okay. Let me go on just a little bit more with the process. So you're negotiating the deals, you're finalizing the financing with Alex or the equivalent. You getting everything lined up. The process itself can take, if it's all cash, it can take 2 weeks. I mean, it could be less, but I always advise that you get an inspection. Don't waive an inspection. You must understand the best you can, is this house going to stay together? And they usually do. And I work very hard to educate you. I've done a lot of flips of homes, remodels of homes. I probably know more than the average agent on how homes work. Again, I'll be very trustworthy. I don't want a deal to go through if it doesn't make sense for you. They're going to come appraise the home, which means that's the county coming in. Well, an appraiser comes in and assesses the value of the home, not what you're paying for, but what number and true value of the home is, because the lenders want to know what the house is valued at, not just what a consumer is willing to pay, because a lender is only going to pay so much for a home. So if the home is listed at 500, and say a year ago that $500,000 home was sold at 600, but the appraiser comes in and says, no, it's only worth 500, you can still buy that home.
Yeah.
But the lender is only going to look at that 500 and give you, based off that additional 100,000 has to come to the table in cash. Okay, we'll go into that when you're buying, but those kinds of things are important. Title, survey, the homeowners association, if that's part of the home, all these things get worked out by by an entity called the title group or the title company. You also hear the terms escrow, which simply means an entity that often, at least in Texas, is the title company. They are holding funds. They're holding funds for you. They're a neutral party that will distribute these funds if it's the down payment, collecting taxes. They hold on to it and they disperse the funds when it's appropriate and when they close. So when we close, that means escrow is taking the money from the seller, from the buyer, and giving it to the seller. So it is very legitimate. It is very it's good to have a neutral party because there's a lot of money changing hands and what have you. And they also are kind of the gatekeeper to make sure that everything's legitimate. Names are spelled correctly, addresses, they hold the records, they file with the county, your deed, and et cetera. So, and then guess what? When the house closes, you get keys. Here's an interesting question. How do you get the keys if you're overseas? We work out things like that, and that's where being in connection with a property manager is helpful. So somebody is kind of acting for you. And something, just side note, I'm not going to go into it today, but there are ways from a business point of view to set up entities here. And I have an attorney who does this. So if you ended up buying more than one home, or you wanted a shell, a partner, you have an agent, is what it's, not a real estate agent, but a different agent that basically acts as an intermediary to get in touch with you.
Yeah, Alex, I would like to ask you actually, you have any advice for investors, anybody who's willing to invest in the US right now, in Austin specifically, or in California? I've heard you're from California, so from California, any specific advice that you would like to give to the investors and whoever is interested?
In investing in California? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Alex, Alex, are you still on the call?
Yeah, so I think both areas, there's some similarities, right? Like both are in high demand, both have great appreciation. I think the political climate is vastly different in both areas. So you're going to see more rent control in certain areas of California, and Texas is going to be a little bit more landlord friendly. I think Austin has been in a growth phase for a while, so I think the rents are not as high as in California, but I think they're going to catch up very quickly over the next couple of years. So you may buy something in Austin where it's not going to cash flow as much. California is not going to cash flow as much as Alabama either. They're both places that are not going to be intense in cash flow. But I think Austin, over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more growth in rents just because it hasn't caught up as much. I think the biggest thing for first-time investors is just get started, because people tend to sit around and do some planning, and then especially if they don't have somebody like Jennipher and myself or somebody to support them in the decision, especially if they're overseas, it can be harder to get started. So the best thing I ever did was buy my first duplex. I bought it for $300,000. Now it's worth like $750,000. I've moved out of it since then. It cash flows a couple thousand per month. I think the best thing is to just get started. And that might be something too that you could touch on, Jennipher. Like a duplex might be a good thing for your first house. So there's more than one way to look at properties. There's apartments, there's single families, there's duplexes. So when you have like a one-on-one meeting, that's kind of the stuff that Jennipher or myself can go over and see kind of what the best fit for you is.
Yeah,
That's perfect. That answered my question. Thanks, Alex.
Can I just follow up on that question? Yeah, it is very, very important that you pick a state that's going to work for you. And for the folks that said they were coming here, different states have different, like Texas, when you do your taxes, you pay federal. You don't pay income tax in the state.
That's a good point too.
Right? California, you may pay state, city taxes. So taxes is a big piece to it. I agree with the duplex comment. when you're buying and investing, having two, the plus side is if one person's not renting, if it's empty or vacant for a little bit because you don't have a tenant, you still have some income coming in. Okay. The only downside to me with a duplex, and it's just one, is that you have to make sure that your tenants get along. Things happen. You have twice as much risk. So this is something we would sit down and talk to make sure you've really thought this out. I think true investors do like the duplex, the triplex, the quadplexes, because there's more going on. There is more to go wrong as far as upkeep. So lots of different things. And I think the most important thing is every single person on this call has their own appetite for risk. And so that's what Alex and I will figure out. What's going to keep you up at night? What happens if you lose everything? I don't think you will. But the other thing I want to be, again, transparent on is you can buy an investment and you may have a tenant, but it may not be paying all the bills for the first year or so. I don't think we're going to see tons of growth in real estate investment in the next year, but I feel very strongly that if you're going to own a property, you should own it for over 3 years, easily over 3. It's a long-term hold. You can improve it. You can add on. When I started investing in Alabama, I bought 2 and I waited. I wanted to see what it was like there. And then I bought more. Some people like to buy all over the country. When you buy all over, remember you're going to have different property expenses or property managers and stuff helping you. So these are the things I'm going to help walk you through the best that I can and make sure that you make good decisions. So we are at 10:50. I have an open house actually in about an hour, and I do want to make sure that I have time to prepare for that. So I'm going to shut up.
Okay.
Do people, does either Taha or do other participants have questions? Because you know how to reach me if you want to email out separately, but I'm more than, your questions are probably questions that other people on this call have.
Just one last question, Jennipher, from my side. Is there any kind of support or services that you provide to people, your customers, investors, after you make the sale, like after they buy the properties?
Yes. Like buying a property is a long-term investment. When I partner with my clients, I'm there for the long haul. There's other things you're going to want to know about. Homesteading, property tax. That's only if you live here. That's another topic. But yeah, absolutely. I want, not only selfishly, do I want to do the best job possible for you so that you refer me to your friends and family. You know Taha and you know FCI and you know where to find me. So service is my first pillar in business. And it really is a joy when you help, especially international buyers, be part of something bigger. It's very exciting. It's scary, but it's really exciting. So I'm not going anywhere after the sale. I'm here for you.
Yeah, and I think one of my first mentors said this is a relationship business. You're like building relationships. You'll probably be with people when they move out because they have kids, and like, so especially, you know, us having so much knowledge with investing ourselves, I think we're both good resources to keep, whether you close your house or whatever happens into the future, because we have a lot of knowledge.
Of course. Like buying a house is something I think very personal, very very close to everybody's hearts. You know, it's something very personal. So you always want to have someone who you can trust completely and someone you can completely rely on, I would say. So yeah, of course.
Yes. Oh, hey, I want to just jump in because you just said something so brilliant about the difference right there that relates to buying your primary home or buying an investment. When you buy an investment, you certainly want to think about the pillars that are going to make it a good investment. And if you have a primary home and then you decide to rent it out, investment means you take your heart away a little bit. You think with your head. It is an investment. It's like putting money into the bank or you want to care about it. But people, when they live in your property and rent it, they're going to scratch it. They're going to paint over something. Things happen. And so you have to disconnect it. And that's why you have the tool belt of, property manager, other people on the ground to assist you, because it is to make you money. It is not to make you feel good, except for getting the money. Okay.
Perfect.
Other questions?
I don't think there are more questions. Why don't we just end the workshop now?
Bye. No. Guys, it was such a pleasure. Huge thumbs up to FCI. Mesa has done so much work in the last couple weeks with me.
It was a pleasure working with you, Jennipher. It was
good.
It was brilliant.
I look forward to hearing from all of you. Alex does as well. Thank you so much for spending a Saturday evening with us. It was just wonderful. And thank you, Osama. I'm so glad you got so much out of it. Please share it with others.
We will be sending an official email to you, to all our participants who participated here. We're going to share your links on our socials. Whoever wants to connect with you can do that. I'm sure you're going to be getting a lot of emails and calls for that matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything you would want to say, Alex? How was your experience here?
Yeah, and I was gonna reply on the chat, but I was gonna say thank you. You guys have been also friendly and welcoming and very interested. We do, this is kind of our own business, so we're always creating our own connections, and sometimes that's very cold, but this is a very warm group, and I think you're very interested in learning. So it's really been a pleasure to be on the call.
Yes,
thank you so much,
Alex. Please continue. Please continue to ask questions. Okay. Thanks so much, guys.
Is that it? Jennipher, you want to say something? One last time?
Last thing. Again, we encourage questions. We love to talk to you. Don't feel that, I don't have enough money right this second, or I'm not sure. That's okay. That's what we're here to help you with. And when the time comes, we're going to be right by your side to help you. And to all those entrepreneurs out there, we love you guys. So thank you for being part of FCI.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, all our participants who joined the workshop. We're going to have workshops every week, different topics, different speakers. We'd love for you all to join our workshops every week. There's always something new to learn. We always have brilliant people like Jennipher, like Alex over here in our community. And yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I think we should just end our workshop now.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh,